What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another review. This time we're taking a look at A Bronx Tale, starring Robert De Niro and Chaz Palminteri. This movie is also the directorial debut and the only feature film to be directed by Robert De Niro. Now, A Bronx Tale is basically a coming-of-age story set within the backdrop of 1960s New York during the mob slash gangster era. The story follows the character of Colangelo Anelio as he pretty much grows up in this section of the Bronx where he's basically surrounded by organized crime, and his only hero is mob boss Sonny. Okay, that is the basic overall story of A Bronx Tale. Let's talk about it. I love A Bronx Tale. To me, Carlito's Way and A Bronx Tale are probably the two most underrated and overlooked movies when it comes to the gangster era of films. Both movies came out at the exact same year, 1993, and they both tell very different stories. Like Carlito's Way is about a gangbanger who's trying his best to go on the straight and narrow and not go back to his old ways. A Bronx Tale is a coming of age story pretty much set with the backdrop of a gangster movie. And I thought both these movies tell their stories to the best of their abilities. A Bronx Tale is just one of those movies that when you watch it, it's a movie that you can instantly just have some sort of relation to. It's that great of a movie. Like the story is resonates with you. The fact that it takes place in New York and a section of the Bronx, it's a very recognizable area. It's an area that many people have been to, and it's an area during the time this movie takes place in that again was surrounded by organized crime. So the only role models and heroes you have are pretty much is what you see, and I admire the movie for that. And it tells a really good story about this kid who doesn't understand the things that's around him. Like he sees the romanticized version of the mob, but he doesn't fully understand it. And it's only when he gets older that he slowly starts to understand it. But the mob boss that pretty much becomes his mentor, he respects this mob boss so much, and the mob boss to him that the character of Sonny pretty much becomes Cologio's second father in a way, and it's great stuff. So, yeah, all that stuff is fantastic. Now, with all that being said, let's talk about the actual cast. This movie is beautifully acted. The two actors who play young Colangelo and old Colangelo, I thought they played their roles really well. Like the young child actor who played C as a little kid, C is his nickname in the movie, who plays C as a little kid, I thought did a really good job. He really did a good job of playing this naive innocence that this child would have being around all these gangsters. And when he witnesses his idol pretty much commit a murder over what he thinks is a parking space, and he does not give him up, you really get the sense that this is an area where if you're a rat, you're going to be outed, like an outcast. And I liked all that stuff. It's good stuff. And when he grows up to be older, I thought the actor who played Lilo Jr., who played older C, I thought he was just as good in the role as well. You know, now C's older, he's more entwined with the with what Sonny does and everything. He has a better understanding of the world that he's in, and you have Sonny who doesn't really want him to be involved in this world. Kind of wants him to do his own. Kind of wants him to be something better for himself, and you also have C's father, Lorenzo De Niro, who also does not want C to be involved in the organized crime. So there's a big difference between how Lorenzo mentors C and how Sonny mentors C. Pretty much Lorenzo wants C. Lorenzo C. Pretty much Lorenzo mentors C the way Lorenzo's parents mentored him. Be a hard worker. You're the working man. The working man is the real tough guy. Sonny is not a working man. He's not. People don't love him. They fear him. Then you have Sonny, who pretty much instills the street life into C. Gives him more of the pretty much teaches C how to handle himself on the streets. But at the same time, they both mean the same, which means both Lorenzo and Sonny, they want the best for C. And I thought that Robert De Niro and Chaz Palminteri as both Lorenzo and Sonny are absolutely fantastic in this movie with their performances and how they mentor this kid. Fantastic. Fantastic stuff. It's so good. Like, you have no idea how fantastic this story is and how good the acting is in this film. The supporting cast that's also in this movie, I thought every single actor played their roles to the best of their abilities. They all serve a function in the story, and there's not one bad seed in this thing. I like the whole backdrop. This movie taking place in the 1960s during the height of segregation. C lives in his own section of the neighborhood, which is mostly Italian Americans, but every so often you'll have one of the blacks pass on by, and his friends pretty much just despise and hate these people to the point where when we get to the end of the movie, they pretty much go into the to Webster Avenue to burn to the ground, but it gets botched and they end up dying as well. And it's just so happened C happened to have been in that car, and if Sonny hadn't intervened, C would have pretty much died along with his friends. So I love all that stuff. That just goes to show you just the kind of person that Sonny really is. Yes, he's this hard mob boss who doesn't trust anyone, but you can see that he does legitimately love C and care for him like he is his own son. Even when Sonny snaps at C because he thinks that C tried to rig his car with an explosive and tried to kill him, and it's not until that moment where he pulls C out of the car where you realize that C wouldn't do that because C idolizes Sonny. I mean, that's just great stuff. This movie's peppered with so many moments like that. Like the exchanges between Lorenzo and Sonny are very intense, and it's the classic father trying to protect his son from a world he does not want him to be in. Personally speaking, I would have liked to see more scenes of De Niro and Chaz having screen time, because in the brief scenes that we do get them in, they are fantastic, bouncing off one another. De Niro, just in general, he does a really good performance in this movie, and I like he's at the center of this movie. Lilo Jr. and Sonny, they're C and Sonny are the centerpiece of the movie, while De Niro hangs out in the background, but he does serve his role, and he serves his role really, really well from a story perspective and from just an emotional center in a way as well. It's great stuff. I mean, I do have some problems with this movie. C's mother, she is in the first half of this movie, and then she completely disappears with no mention of what happened to her. Like, we don't even see her in scenes at all. She's barely even mentioned. And the romance between C and the black girl Jane, I think, is really underdeveloped, and I think it's actually really, really rushed. Me personally, I would have had C and Jane kind of have a childhood friendship, which would have meant more once they get to the teenage years, they start to develop more feelings for one another and start to like each other. I think if they already had a relationship already prior to that, I think it would have meant more to me, and it wouldn't have felt as rushed. But in the scenes that they do share, it's really well done. It's really adorable in a way. It's a forbidden romance. It's really a forbidden romance. Like, the black girl should not be dating the white guy, and the white Italian guy shouldn't be dating the black girl. Like, they're breaking the neighborhood law in a way, and I like all that. Like, C doesn't see her as a black girl; he sees her as a white girl. He sees her as just any other girl, but giving his neighborhood, he knows that if he pursues it, it's going to be very, very controversial. And you have his father Lorenzo, who is more traditional in a way, and again you have Sonny, who kind of pushes to, like, hey, go for it. Who cares? Nobody cares. I love all that stuff. It's great. And another complaint that I have is that Joe Pesci is actually in this movie, who plays a character called Carmine. It's actually Joe Pesci's character who gets attacked, which causes Sonny to commit the murder. Fun to see Joe Pesci in the one scene that he's really in. Like, when you first see him, it's like a passing glance, and then when you see him again at the end of the movie, you realize that it was actually his character who got beat up. I mean, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of Joe Pesci as Carmine, just because I like seeing Joe Pesci in movies. He's great, but just to have him in this movie, fantastic. Does that take away from the movie as a whole? I don't think so. I think the forgetting of the mother character and the underdeveloped romance between Jane and C is much more prevalent to me than basically a Joe Pesci cameo. But aside from all of that, A Bronx Tale is a strong coming-of-age movie set within that gangster backdrop. This movie is beautifully directed by Robert De Niro. The cinematography is immaculate. Like, they really capture that 1960s feel and look with this movie from a production standpoint. It looks fantastic. And the storyline is relatable and timeless in its its own little way. It's a brilliantly done coming of age story. So with all that being said, A Bronx Tale for me gets a solid 9 out of 10. I love this movie. Let me know your thoughts in the comment sections down below. Like the video and subscribe, and I'll check you back next time for more.